Hello and welcome to today's Facebook LinkedIn Live. Thank you so much for people that are joining on and watching us live today and on the replay. I'm really excited because today I'm going to be chatting with an education and parenting expert called Rachel Vecht, who is the founder of a company called Educating Matters. You may have heard me speak to Rachel in last week's podcast episode where we were talking about where Rachel was giving some brilliant parenting tips on how to help your child to thrive. I'm so excited to be welcoming Rachel back today. And today we're doing a slightly different angle to how to create family-friendly workplaces, why it matters to your employees and how to do it right. So as people are logging on, do let us know if you can hear us all okay. Give us a like or an emoji. Obviously want to hear about your experiences as well. So do let us know how family friendly your organization is, what they're doing right, and maybe what you wish you would see more of. So yeah, looking forward to hearing your views. Thank you so much, Rachel, for joining us today. I'm really excited because obviously you've got a presentation for us as well, which is brilliant. So thank you so much for giving us your time today.
Thank you for having me.
No, it's an absolute pleasure.
Okay, so do you want me to get going?
Absolutely, yeah. I'm very, very
Brilliant. So thank you for that introduction. So just to add, my background is as a school teacher. I'm a mum of 4 children, and I founded Educating Matters back in 2001. So my expertise has been the last 2 decades really focusing on supporting working parents and carers with all aspects of educating, raising children, integrating work and family. And as a business, Educating Matters supports companies with other things like mental health, well-being, neurodiversity, allyship, so lots and lots of different topics. But today we're really focusing on parents and carers. And because also as a teacher, I've spent around 30 years talking to people who are parents or have caring responsibilities, I think I've got a pretty good sense of the common challenges that they face. Now, on the side, I can't actually see the chat and questions, but as I'm talking, do feel free to share any thoughts, anything that resonates. It's also great to have this network and community. So if you've put something in place that you have found has landed really well to support people with caring responsibilities, every time I do a session, I'm learning as well from our audience. So please do share that. So I've worked with a vast range of different companies in all sorts of sectors and on a global scale, which also enables me to understand the challenges of people maybe working in an office, people out on the roads. I've worked with pharmaceuticals, doctors, like every kind of work environment that you can imagine. So the first thing is like, who actually are parents and carers? And I think it's really important, especially in today's world. There's such a diverse way of setting up a family. And interestingly, a lot of the talks I do, which you think are geared towards parents and carers, there are loads of people that come that are not mums and dads. You could be a godparent, a neighbour. There are all sorts of reasons why people take on board those caring responsibilities. And a lot of people tend to focus, especially organisations, on people who are recently on maternity and paternity leave or someone who is obviously pregnant. But actually, being a parent or a carer is a lifetime commitment. My eldest child's about to finish university, but I know my job is not done in terms of that ongoing relationship. And the needs of family are constantly changing, even long after, for example, your child has left home. And I also know that a lot of dads or men are still overlooked. And if we want a culture, that family-friendly culture in the workplace to really evolve, we need to know that the best way to support mums is to support dads too. So a family-friendly workplace needs to have that healthy mix of men and women, and the role of a father needs to be respected equally to that of a mother. Now, I think the last time I checked, parents or carers make up about 40% of the workforce. So actually, the whole organisation benefits when you support employees with caring responsibilities. That assists with recruitment, retention of talent, increasing productivity, motivation, well-being, trust, loyalty, and even reduces absenteeism. So just like a little thought on some of the challenges. When I ask parents or people with caring responsibilities, what are your main challenges? These are some examples of some of the things that come up. And I often say that being a parent is probably the hardest job in the world with the least amount of training. And it's really difficult for somebody in a team to understand or appreciate what it takes to be a carer or a parent. Now, for parents, they're constantly bombarded, literally the minute a child is born, with lots of conflicting advice. And it can feel really all-consuming, very confusing. There are about 3 million working carers in the UK, and their impact of caring responsibilities can be huge, both emotionally and physically, like liaising with different agencies and lots of paperwork and complex legal and financial procedures and advocating for someone who's a dependent. And a lot of people are leaving their jobs because of these caring responsibilities. And then that sandwich generation where you have people with children and elderly relatives to care for. So if I was to try and narrow it down, one thing I hear the most is guilt. I mean, we all feel a bit of guilt, but this kind of comes with the territory.
Yeah.
It's like part of the job description, right, of being a parent or carer. And I did a talk the other day on for parents on leave currently due to come back. And I love this one. One mum said, I feel guilty because I don't feel guilty about coming back to work and leaving my child. So there's so many different parts. There's the overwhelm, right? The space in your brain, like you'll know this, Liz, that is taken up with just thinking about the logistics to get through an average week. There's sometimes, the motivation piece. So when you have a child, your perceptions and purpose can shift a bit. And it's matching that with your career progression. Sometimes you can get a drop in confidence. And also, I think a big piece is the unpredictability. So life is unpredictable for everyone, beautifully emphasized during COVID. But when you are caring for someone, the chances of more things happening beyond your control is much more likely. So it's just lots of different things. And these are not things that just exclusive to people with caring responsibilities, but I think they're magnified.
Why? So you sort of saying that you, obviously you work with companies, but why historically have companies, I guess, ignored the fact that people have a life outside of work and other responsibilities and tried to pretend that life is not there?
Yeah, well, it's not just parents, but a lot of people traditionally, like if I've been doing this for 20 years when well-being, diversity and inclusion was not in a job title. There was no such thing as a family network or an employee resource group. And I just don't think that there was a culture of people talking about anything that was going on outside of work, whether that's a mental health challenge, whether it's a disability, around your sexuality. And I just think we're reaching this point where people are thankfully just a lot more open, and this whole idea of showing up as your true self. And I guess if you talk too much about caring responsibilities historically, you might be thought that that's going to impact your career progression. People will think you're not focused on your job. But now we've understood that there's so much energy in trying to hide that. And that actually leads on beautifully to this next point, which is to appreciate how many transferable skills and qualities that people with caring responsibilities actually develop. So there's just a few examples, like even if you weren't before naturally organized, the only way to cope is to improve your time management skills and making the most of the time that you do have, and kind of setting clearer boundaries, which actually can be more cost effective for the business as well. And having that new perspective and purpose is nothing like being financially responsible for another dependent. But it also means you just don't get as stressed about things that may have worried you about you in the past. And you can let some of those irrelevant things go. I think that empathy is a huge piece, and that translates into work because you have that new raised level of awareness of the challenges that other people face, whether that's colleagues or clients or whoever. And you definitely learn a lot about managing difficult stakeholders. You know, anyone who's tried to get a 3-year-old into a car seat that doesn't want to get into one, if you have problems at work, it like pales into significance of dealing with someone that's kind of a bit challenging. So it's just important to, I think, to appreciate that. And then, I mean, I could talk all day about this, but I want to just share some of the things that organizations can do, no matter what their size. I've worked with public, private sector, charities, schools, to help parents and carers feel supported. So firstly, it's about not making any assumptions or expectations about what they need, like not putting parents and carers into a specific bucket, but making sure you speak to each one individually. It is also important, irrespective of the size of your organization, to actually speak to people, do surveys, talk to them, understand their unique pain points and what you can do to support them and create that supportive workplace environment. Now, I'm not going to pretend that I'm an absolute expert in family-friendly policies and benefits, because I help more like on the ground.
Yeah.
But what I will say, and I hear a lot, like when I do especially parental transition workshops, is you can have all this stuff in place, but very often people don't know they exist. So they need to be worded well, simple to understand. You know, one of the reasons why the take-up of shared parental leave is low, there are lots, but one is just the admin and getting your head around, and the lack of clarity around how to implement it in practice. So that is definitely something to
You're saying that in the government then?
No, I'm also saying within organizations, how do you make that really understood to employees and how to implement it? Yeah, I think. A massive thing for me is, you know, going back to that idea of a key to gender parity is having that space where dads feel that they can take more extended leave and work flexibly. And this goes back to that idea of moving away. We've come we've come such a long way, but there's still this outdated stereotype of the father as the provider and the mother as the caregiver, even if both partners are working. And we've got to just stop this idea that mothers are more valuable or capable as parents. So normalising parental leave for both sexes, and not not just imagining that flexibility or extended leave is something just for mums, and being really careful with the language as well. So, you know, people say, how was your holiday? Well, going on a holiday with young kids is not really a holiday, well, any age kids, or like viewing, extended leave as kind of a break. Because many parents, I was having a chat with a dad yesterday who was saying that by 9 o'clock, he already feels like he's done a whole day of work, you know, getting the kids dressed, breakfast, drops off, all of that. So that's that. I know this is obviously your field in recruitment and flexibility, but I think these days time and flexibility sometimes counts more than actual pay. And flexibility can mean so many different things: term time hours, job sharing, part-time roles, compressed hours, outcome-based targets. And I think the key to this, we're talking about people with caring responsibilities, but it's creating that culture where flexibility for anyone is the norm, not just assuming it's someone who is a carer. That is the cornerstone of attracting a diverse, inclusive workforce. And so then when you do that, go on.
I'd circle back. So Ash, I don't know if you've got your connection base that said anyone else lost connection. I'm hoping you've got your connection back, because it looks like we're connected from our end. But if you lose connection at any point, all the replays are on LinkedIn, and put them on the website. So Ash, I'll send you an email if you've lost connection at any point with the replay afterwards. So hopefully you won't miss anything. So sorry about that. I just like to circle back, because you were talking about, you know, basically, and I 100% agree with you about the way for, you know, more women to have equality in the workplace is to get more buy-in from dads. And How do companies do that then? What are some of the ways you've seen companies do that successfully?
Well, I guess the fundamental piece is actually having a culture where they really promote flexibility, and sometimes there's a worry that that's going to like impact on productivity. And you can even have informal flexibility, like just knowing that you can schedule out time in your diary for, you know, a school pickup, and then know that you can log back on when you've given your kids tea or something. So it doesn't have to always be formal, but if people don't even feel like they can have a conversation about it, and you still hear a lot of dads who are denied those requests for flexible working, whereas mums are still more likely to get it. So there's one thing kind of saying on a website or in an ethos, this is what we offer, but as another thing, like translating that into reality. And even that feeling of like, I can ask for it. Like they say you offer it, but actually I still don't even want to ask because I feel like my manager doesn't really want me to do that and isn't supportive. And that's going to come on to a few other points I'm going to make around role modeling and parenting out loud. So all of this like feeds into that supportive, family friendly culture at work.
Yeah, brilliant. Oh, welcome back, Ash, as well. I know
Okay.
she says she's back. Thank you.
Okay. So at the moment, like everyone, although it's been quite a while since those lockdowns, thank goodness, people are still, organizations I work with are still trying to tease out and work out how to actually make this kind of remote hybrid working work in reality. And a lot of that is about developing strong communication strategies, regular check-ins, ensuring that out of sight doesn't mean out of mind. So I still think this is a learning process. Like a lot of my clients are in our law firms, and again, that's got a very strong culture of presenteeism. So I still think we are figuring out how to make this work effectively, and it's still, you know, a steep learning curve. And then you hear about companies that are suddenly saying, no, this is over, we want everyone back in 5 days a week. So it's just really thinking about that. And again, like I said, with flexibility, that anyone, not just parents and carers, for any reason may prefer a remote hybrid way of working, and you know, that should be the norm. Obviously, Liz, this is your area with recruitment, but I'm sure this is what you advise to your clients, is advertising roles as flexible, like, and actually making sure you really think through job design. So traditionally, I guess it was like trying to squeeze a full-time job into 3 or 4 days, but actually recognizing that you need to reduce the workload and expectations in line with reduced hours, and also very much outcome-based performance. And, you know, being open-minded about things like a gap in a CV for a caregiver, and having returnship programs in place, and really understanding that equality and diversity and inclusion is not just an HR consideration. The next one is absolutely huge. I cannot begin to count how many times I've been told, multiple times, that the relationship with a manager is one of the most significant factors in a person with caring responsibilities, their ability to cope with integrating work and family. It's an absolute game changer. When you have a supportive team, it doesn't just have to be a manager, with a relationship built on trust and openness and flexibility, employees feel tremendously grateful and could end up being the most committed, loyal person on the team. And I think that the key to that relationship is built on these 4 things: trust, flexibility, empathy, and communication. And when you get that right, that's what leads to, you know, the increased productivity, motivation, and all the rest of it. And I would actually say that those are the foundations of any good relationship. So whether that's at work, with your colleagues, with your own children, with your parents, with partners or friends, creating that open space for communication and empathy and flexibility. And we know that the best companies treat their employees like customers. And it's very different, like I said before, having this like fancy policies and ethos, if that is not each person's direct experience. So their reality counts way more than like what's on the website. So goodwill and support is a huge factor. And when parents get that right, I've seen time and time again, you have happier, more motivated and engaged employees who are less stressed and performing better. So it's helping them to feel valued, have that real sense of belonging. And we do a lot of work directly with line managers to kind of teach effective communication. It is a skill, like I've had to learn this as a parent as well, to be an engaged listener, to foster psychological safety and help people to feel valued and respected. I'm actually just preparing quite a new exciting talk for Mace in a couple of weeks for their leadership team, or anyone's invited, but looking at the parallels between what leaders can learn from parents, because obviously parenting is a form of leadership and it is so much about communication and empathy. So that's a huge piece. Just a few more bits to share and then we can see if you've got any questions. Another massive thing is about role models and allyship. So highlighting and sharing stories of good practice, whether that's within your business, within your sector, having examples or case studies to refer to. Like if you can say to your line manager when you're having a conversation, I've seen that so-and-so in this team is doing this and it seems to be working really well. And again, men who are active, engaged allies in nurturing a gender equal culture. And also, especially for men, being able to have open, vulnerable conversations about not just parenting, but mental health, loss, divorce, loneliness, whatever the subject. This has become a big catchphrase recently, this idea of parenting out loud. But it basically means, like in the old days, especially a lot of dads would say, well, what I do is I leave my jacket on the back of the chair. So I just go out to sports day or, a concert at school and I'll just say I'm popping out and make out I'm coming back. But actually openly blocking out time in your diary for parenting and caring responsibilities, communicating to your team, being open if attending a meeting first thing in the morning at the end of the day is a real struggle, rather than just trying to hide and make excuses. Because ultimately trying to pretend to be someone you're not and hiding all those other responsibilities you have is just really draining and exhausting and won't enable you to achieve your full potential. Now, I have seen, most of my work is with employee networks and resource groups. Mm-hmm. And that concept of a peer-led community to raise awareness, to educate, to normalize common challenges, to share experiences, along with that, like direct line of communication to senior management and exec sponsors is tremendously powerful. This is where like all the good stuff happens. And having that space to just realize that you're not alone. And what I love about this aspect of my work, so if I was at a car company, I could have the guys who are literally on the factory floor and the most senior management, or in a law firm, you've got a senior partner along with the person that's running the canteen. And it doesn't matter what level they are in the business, what their pay is, we all experience similar challenges as parents or people with caring responsibilities. And it's an incredible leveler and a way of bringing people together within an organization. Now, obviously, another big piece, which is only so much businesses can be part of, but there's so much, again, on LinkedIn, Pregnant and Screwed are doing amazing work among other people, but the availability and cost of childcare is also a fundamental part of employee infrastructure. We've obviously had this new government policy, what that looks like. Another example of what's a policy going to be like in reality. But doing what you can as an organization, and of course that depends on the size of your business, whether it's tax-free childcare schemes, backup childcare, on-site nurseries for large organisations, changing start and end times to accommodate drop-off and pick-up and all that kind of stuff. Because the pressure on parents to identify a main caregiver and a main breadwinner is really exacerbated by the lack of childcare alternatives. So I wonder if anyone's got any questions. Just to say as a last thing, if you want to know more about what I do, I'm on LinkedIn most days. You can subscribe to my newsletter. If you are a parent or carer yourself, my blog has loads of articles and videos, and that's all the practical bit on how to support parents with kids of various ages. And I've also got an online parenting course. But most of you probably listening are here more from an organisation perspective. So we're constantly developing new material, new ideas. Everything I've ever done is just comes from brainstorming and seeing what it is that people want. So we're always open to ideas.
Okay, brilliant. So yeah, if anyone's got any questions,
slides.
if anyone's got any questions, please pop them in the comments, and we check them as well on the replay. So if you're watching this on the replay and you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the comments as well. Like I said, Rachel was on our Work It Like a Mum podcast last week. So if you are a parent and she was offering more tips on parenting, and it was brilliant, really good. And we were talking about how parenting has changed as well over the years, and technology, and how to manage that as well if you're a parent. So brilliant advice. That, I mean, I have the question about the role modeling, because I think that's really good, and parenting loudly. So if you're a leader watching this and you might have got buy-in, or if maybe you need to get buy-in from your management, how, what are the steps you should take as an employer, I guess, to get that buy-in from either the leadership or the middle management that are, that are maybe blocking that or have.
I think it's just really about like starting those conversations and feeling your way. Now, one thing I do hear about role modeling is if that kind of role modeling and parenting out loud comes from someone quite senior, of course, that's really powerful. But then someone who's not as like advanced within the business thinks, well, it's fine for them. Like they can afford to take that extended leave, or they've already got to the peak of their career. So if they're saying, twice a week, I'm leaving the office at 3:00 to take my child to wherever, and you still might think, although they say we can do this, like in reality, how's that going to impact on how I'm perceived by colleagues? Am I pulling my weight? What's the impact on career progression? So I just think it's having those like open conversations and feeling your way, and also being open, like, I don't really feel like this is a place where I can comfortably parent out loud, and what can we do to address that? I think is probably like the best way. And the more that people do it, the more it becomes like normalized and valued.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? Because I worked in an organization which it would have been really difficult, I think, to parent out loud, because it wasn't that type, and then obviously then a lot of people leave, don't they? And then they have that problem. But I guess it's then turning a company around that's so entrenched in one way of thinking to actually,
Yeah, and I guess in companies that have quite a young demographic, so maybe not all, but things like tech or media, where you feel like actually there aren't that many colleagues that are parents. I'm just going to be one of a very small handful, and maybe I don't want to talk about it that much because they don't.
Yeah.
And there's also that feeling of people that aren't parents and carers, to be honest, may feel like a bit resentful, like how come you're getting all this flexibility? Like I want it as well for different reasons. So there's a lot to kind of manage around it.
Absolutely. I think this is why flexible working is so important for everybody. Whatever your reason for wanting it, it's definitely something that should be encouraged and appreciated in the organisation. Well, thank you so much, Rachel, for your time today. It's been a real pleasure chat with you. We'll obviously put all your links in the show notes, and then we'll send it out as well on the replay as well. So if anyone's missed it, they can catch it again.
Thank you so much.
And thank you to everybody that has watched today.